them fantasy sports. We're back again for another college spotlight. I'm Jamie. That's Eli. We're actually going to be covering Javon Baker from UCF tonight.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Oh yes.
Yeah. I was gonna say quick, Jake. We're not live, but whenever you guys get a chance to check this out, we'd appreciate it. And Javon Baker, former Alabama receiver. If you guys, you probably wouldn't have remembered him from a couple years ago. He kind of fell by the wayside. And in his defense, they had John Mechie there at the time, Henry Ruggs, who we know what he did, but he was a damn good receiver there. Jamison Williams, Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, Jerry Jeudy. Anybody know him? It was just they were stacked at receiver. But he had a second career for himself at UCF, so we're gonna get into him tonight. But
Yes,
if you haven't done this yet, Jake, tell them where they could find us outside of this stream here.
Well, I mean, if you guys haven't, I mean, I'm sure you maybe guys seen already. I mean, we're on Apple Pods, always a favorite for me. Google, not much of an Android guy, but I mean, hey, for all you Android lovers out there, I mean, I guess you can find us out there. And Spotify. I mean, I love Spotify as much as Eli loves Spotify as well. And I think I might put on a little bit more music time than him, but I love Spotify as well. There's no promo to Spotify, but Spotify does support our stuff. So whatever works. And make sure you guys also join our Discord, which the link will be in description below. So come over, join us, talk some sports, talk some NBA, NFL, college stuff, whatever, baseball stuff. We do a little bit of baseball stuff too as well, which is our other guy Donovan. But yeah, come join us, talk some sports or whatever. Fantasy or I don't even know what the hell I'm saying anymore. I just totally just messed this up.
Yeah.
Well, this is what happens. We're not robotic like some of these other guys that do shows and they have pre-written material for them. So this is all off the cuff. But I do love Spotify. I do love Discord, and I do love me some Javon Baker. Receiver from the UCF Knights. So I'll start off before I get into some of the numbers and all that. And Jay usually backs me up with his statistic. I'll go first with the graphic, and then usually Jay will have another graphic, and he'll have some deeper stats or the college ranking. In fantasy, he plays a lot of college fantasy football. So Jay will have his ranking possibly. Like previous episodes, we've had if Keon Coleman was the 4th rated fantasy receiver, or if he was the 2nd in the ACC, Jay will have that for you. He's so he'll bring that aspect of it. I'm more opinion based, and I'll start off with, I would say his comp is like Brandon Ayuk as like a high ceiling, just based on his size, skill set, 40 time, college stats, a lot of things combined into one. I dug deep. I mean, Draft Buzz and PFF, who I reference, sometimes they'll have their own suggestions. Like one of their suggestions was Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Lions. I didn't see it, and so I wasn't going to go in that direction. I thought more of Brandon Ayuk, just because I think Javon Baker, if he didn't end up with a team like the 49ers, would fit in. He's a physical receiver and doesn't mind working in traffic and all that. I think a low end for him, just where his rookie NFL stat line might be, or his second year, I would say Jalen Tolbert, who was a South Alabama receiver who was drafted by the Cowboys in the 3rd round a couple years ago. Jay knows him pretty well. Jalen Tolbert was supposed to hit more than he did. He has had 2 lackluster seasons, and that's kind of the floor. So I'm thinking Brandon Ayuk is the comp ceiling, where he's a Pro Bowl level receiver, getting over 1,000 yards. Brandon Ayuk, I think, has been over 1,000 yards, I think 2 of the 4 years, possibly 3. So he's had a damn good career so far. And Jalen Tolbert, like I said, lackluster seasons, but he hasn't been getting he got 32 targets last year for the Cowboys, so he has been getting looks, made an NFL roster. So I think at the very least, Javon Baker will fall somewhere in that range. He's the 180th prospect ranking on Draft Buzz. I think it's 181 now. I think it's changed a spot. That kind of stuff happens. I made this graphic in the last week, or whatever. Dropped one spot. Whatever. Receiver ranking is still 26th, which I mean, this receiving draft, the receivers in this draft, it is stacked. Okay, it is stacked. A lot like when he was at Alabama, like I had mentioned 5 minutes ago. When he was at Alabama, wasn't a bad receiver. He had to go somewhere else to get playing time. But when you're behind, All-American, the Heisman Trophy winner, Devontae Smith, I mean, a lot of these guys were high first-round picks. Devontae Smith, first-round pick. Jamison Williams, first-round pick. Henry Ruggs, first-round pick. Jerry Jeudy, first-round pick. And the list goes on and on. John Mechie was a damn good receiver there. I didn't even mention Jalen Waddle, who him and Tyreek are probably the best 1-2 combo, or one of them in the NFL right now. So they just six. I believe in the last 4 years. Last 4 drafts, they've had 6 receivers taken and pretty highly. So, just couldn't find any playing time there. I mean, when you're dealing with the likes of those, same thing here with this, receiving core, or the list of receivers. 26th ain't that bad. You're going to get drafted. Right now, he's projected to be a 6th round pick. Yeah, I'd say somewhere, late 3rd day. 6th, 7th round pick, somewhere in there. That's, it's nothing to snuff at. I mean, we just saw Brock Purdy, start the Super Bowl yesterday and play, decently. And Brock Purdy had 32 touchdowns this past year, 30-some touchdowns. He looked pretty damn good. He was Mr. Irrelevant, 7th round pick. Puka, where everybody loves Puka, on Draft Buzz last year, they had Puka rated as a 7th round pick on Draft Buzz. Ended up going higher than that. And obviously he was an all-pro level receiver with the Rams, and probably going forward. I mean, the guy's a so just because he's rated where he's at doesn't mean that he can't be a first-year receiver that you're taking late in your dynasty draft. You never know. I mean, I think he's going to have some value for sure. And let's get into some of the stats last year. 2022, not terrible. It's pedestrian. Yeah, I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be, putting on my nice face for this. Only like 50 some grabs. A little less than 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, nothing that would have put him on the mark, on the map for anything. In terms of being drafted, he wasn't even one of the guys in consideration before the season started. From the research I was doing, he wasn't even on anybody's list. He would have been, probably an undrafted free agent, or probably more than likely a UFL guy. And that's where he was projected to be. This last season changed that trajectory. Still, doesn't get as many catches as you'd like, but I mean that comes with the targets. I mean, he's not. He's not a high volume guy, but that doesn't mean that he can't be. He's more of a deep threat guy. And as you can see with the numbers there, had over 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, almost 22 yards average per catch. So, and the biggest thing I look at is, and I put his stat line on the bottom there, on the bottom scroll, with what he did. And he, there's a couple good teams that he had some really standout performances against. Had 5 grabs, 134 yards and 2 touchdowns against Oklahoma. In the bowl game against Georgia Tech, went off. Had 173 yards and a touchdown there. So, I mean, there's a couple games that, and this was, UCF, they're a newer team to the Big 12. So, it's a step up in competition from, where UCF would have been a few years ago, being in a smaller conference. So, they're playing better teams. And in the Senior Bowl, too, which we saw, obviously this past weekend was Super Bowl, but the weekend before that, he had 2 grabs, 22 yards. So, I mean, he got a few looks there. And I think he helped us. And Jay was saying that, too, when off air, he was telling me about his thoughts on things, and he had a graph about some of his risers and fallers, which he's going to bring up from the Senior Bowl. And Javon Baker was one of them. So I think he raised his stock as well. And that's just, my overall thoughts. He's 6'1", 208, runs a 4.48 40 time. And I think a lot of stuff, he doesn't have the, greatest hands, but he's got strong hands. I think he's a physical guy. I think he'd work well with the 49ers. If they did have to let Brandon Ayuk go, I've been giving you 3 teams. The 49ers, obviously, because he's physical and, he's Brandon Ayuk light. Not going to be at Brandon Ayuk's level, in my opinion. Like I said, he'll fall somewhere in the spectrum between Ayuk and Tolbert. Let's say 49ers are 1. Another team to be on the lookout for, Tennessee. I think they're fed up with Treylon Burks. And so he could kind of fill they got a couple guys that are, Kyle Phillips and Westbrook Akeem. They got a couple guys that are just kind of fringe NFL receivers that they got. I think he'd do well with Tennessee and their new regime there. They've got the Bengals OC they hired. Or you know what? I'm gonna go with a dark horse here, and I'm gonna say the Falcons. I'm gonna say the Falcons. They could use. They haven't. Obviously he's not Roddy White. I mean, Roddy White was a damn good receiver in his day, but this could be like a poor man's Roddy White, or Russell Gage even. Like, Russell Gage is a similar player. They lost him to us, the Buccaneers, a couple years ago. So kind of be somewhere, be a draft pick and maybe have similar production to a Russell Gage, best case scenario. So I'd say the Falcons, Titans, and the 49ers would be the 3 teams to look out for in the draft. Weaknesses, like I said, doesn't get off, doesn't get away from coverage very well, because he's just. But I like a guy that can go up in one-on-one balls and go and get it. He's a playmaker, and so I'll live with the other stuff. If he's not the greatest blocker, doesn't have the best hands, there's a lot of guys that that have made a career that weren't the best blocking receivers, didn't have the best hands. He's got other X factors that I like a lot. And if he was projected to be a first round grade, a lot of this stuff would go under the rug. There's probably some guys that are up in the top 5 right now. Keon Coleman. Are we talking about Keon Coleman's blocking? No, we're talking that he's a freak athlete, freakish size.
Oh.
Could be a modern, TO.
Yeah.
Just some monster. Calvin Johnson type. I think that aspect overrated unless you're in certain offenses working under certain coaches. So those are my thoughts on Javon Baker.
Yeah, it was just I guess I just kind of to pull that up. We talk about this is just a slight preview to our Senior Bowl. So I'm not gonna show you the rest of this stuff, but Javon. To get kind of talk about that Senior Bowl real quick. He had a couple good catches in there that I've seen. The only downfall with the Senior Bowl was that you didn't really. There were some deep passes in there. Baker's passes that he caught were more kind of the intermediate kind of, they weren't really deep. He had one catch that was close to the red zone, didn't really, didn't get in or anything like that. So this Senior Bowl kind of sucked, but I guess if you were watching kind of more of the practices and stuff like that, that probably would have benefited a lot of you, because there were some guys that I thought maybe were going to play, but a lot of them didn't really play, like, Michael Penix Jr. He didn't even play that game. He thought was going to play, but he had some pretty good practices and stuff like that. So there were some guys I was hoping to maybe see a little bit more during the game, but that I didn't get to see. But yeah, that kind of covers just a little bit of that. But there, I'm gonna pop this up. We Javon Baker. Just kind of digging into this guy a little bit. The crazy thing is Eli mentioned that he was with Alabama. It was really hard for him to be a standout when you had guys like Javonte Smith, Waddle, Jameson Williams in that wide receiver core for him to really stand out. So if you look at the first couple seasons there, he didn't play. He had hard one or two two receptions in 2020, 7 receptions in 21. So I mean, you can kind of tell that he maybe was frustrated and not getting playing time, or I mean, who knows? I don't remember who their quarterback was in 2020, so I didn't look up that who their might have been, hell, it might have even been Tua.
Mac,
So I mean,
Mac
Mac
Jones.
Jones? Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
so, I mean, yeah, so I wasn't even quite sure. I mean, I thought it maybe would've been maybe Tua or something like that, but no, yeah, Mac Jones makes sense because yeah, he was actually drafted 2021, I think? Yeah,
Yeah.
whichever,
15th pick in 2021. Yep.
yeah. So, and then he actually transferred over to UCF where I was kind of looking. They didn't really have too many weapons there at UCF. So, I mean, good place for him to land to actually be their wide receiver one. So he pretty much kind of stood out a little bit in 2022, 796 yards, a couple touchdown. It had a touchdown, 500-yard games, with the UCF right off the bat when after transferring, 2023, 1,100 yards. So I mean, and he's a raw talent I mean, with the couple the 4 years that he was there at between his college career, still very raw. So I mean, this last year just hit had 1,000 some yards. So maybe this is the beginning of something. I mean, I don't know where he's gonna go, draft wise and stuff like that. Maybe it's hard saying because there's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft class. And I don't know. I think a couple comps that I think it all comes down to where he lands too. Just his playing style, I thought kind of resembled Mike Evans, but he's not like as tall as Mike Evans, but his playing style kind of represented Mike Evans. Just the way he runs the ball, after the catch, more of a physical player than anything. So his playing style kind of represented, Mike Evans.
I was gonna say he plays a lot bigger than his size.
Yeah. Yep.
6'1", 208.
Yep.
And this will vary. Some sites have him a little skinnier, some have him at 6 foot, but I just consensus 6'1", 208. He plays a lot like, and I was gonna use Mike Evans, definitely. Like a Drake London, he's 6'5", kind of these big 6'5". He plays more like these 6'3" to 6'5" lumbering, the traditional X receivers that we would remember from our childhood, of
Yep.
all the TOs and the Calvin Johnsons, all those kind of guys, and to modern day Mike Evans, guys like that is what we kind
Yeah.
of plays more like. Because I get the comp there.
Yeah. And far as raw talent, because I was just trying to think of like, well, who are some guys that were kind of raw, but not really a prestige or Christine like route running skills and stuff like that maybe needed some work on. And guys like Jalen Hyatt was one of them that came to mind. He didn't, he was only in there for 3 years. You know, really, it wasn't until the last year that his game really exploded with Hendon Hooker. And Rashid Rice was kind of in the same in that same fold too as well. And that he really didn't stand out till like his third year or whatever. So I mean, it's kind of my ceiling with him. It depends on like his team wise, like Jalen Hyde. If he's in a crowded, if he's in a crowded like wide receiver core, it's not going to be. But like if he lands into like a Rashid Rice role, then he might be able to stand out. Those are kind of like my low highs on if depends on depending on the team. So those are kind of where I stand with him there. Even though these Jalen Hyatt and Rice are kind of similar to what Javon Baker kind of was. So it all depends. He was in a crowded place and then he transferred, and he kind of shined a little bit more after he transferred, kind of thing, which is nice about the transfer portal, man. Because the transfer portal, I know you and I kind of talked about the transfer portal. I mean, a lot of guys are hesitant about it. I mean, our opinion on it is that the transfer, college is going more toward like the NFL. Kids wanting to, try to, go to a place where they're going to be recognized, where they're going to see a team needy team that's going to need their talents, and that was the same way with Javon Baker. Javon Baker, his talents were being flooded down in Alabama, and transferred to UCF, and look at what he did last year. Played 13 games, had 83 targets, 1,000 some odd yards, only on 52 receptions. I'm not sure what that kind of average out to, like how much of his targets, how much percent of the targets he got, but almost nearly 100 targets. That means it's almost he's getting maybe over 15-20% of the target share with their wide receiver in that core there. 7 touchdowns, 208 fantasy, in a PPR style setting. So I mean, raw talent, but he's got potential. I mean, it just depends on where he's going to be landing in the draft. That's my thought on it, anyways.
Yeah, it's hard because he's gonna be a late pick, and so he from the sounds of it, he's used to, especially these last couple years at UCF, he's used to being the number one guy. He's used to being the number one target, for the UCF offense. Obviously, they're not, they weren't, even on some of the Big 12 teams, TCU and Oklahoma, Texas, K-State, some of the power, Iowa State, some of the better Big 12 teams, they weren't even on that level. But
yeah,
it'd be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to see what his attitude is like. If he's got a good attitude, come in, because he's going to have to work his way up a depth chart. He's not going to come in day one. And a lot of these guys do. A lot of these, like Puka, didn't come in. I mean, he wowed him in, obviously in the preseason and training camp, but Puka didn't come in day one last May and like, hey, I'm taking one of these 2-3 starting receiver spots. He worked his way up over the course of a few months. So it'd be interesting that kind of attitude that Javon Baker, because like I said, it was a bold move to leave Alabama to go to a smaller school. Like he didn't cross transfer. He didn't go to an Ohio State. This definitely a move downwards, but it was for the best. He would have got lost in the shuffle at Alabama, and now he's, like I said, he's going to be a drafted NFL player and see where he goes from there. We got the fantasy. Ooh.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you think about what he did in the conference, I mean, he was 4th best in the conference. I mean, and that's a lot of guys are all over Xavier Worthy, and I know we talked about Xavier Worthy and whatnot. I don't know if I don't know if I'm a fan of drafting Xavier Worthy myself, just because the talent. Okay, the talent's there, but as far as more of a dynasty guy, I don't know if I would draft him. I would probably take Javon Baker over them, only just because the text or now I just totally got the Longhorns.
What he's trying to say is that they're underachievers. I don't care if they made the playoffs this year. They're underachievers. They should. They have the highest NIL bankroll, pretty much. Like they're like they're like the New York Yankees. Remember the Yankees and Dodgers in baseball? How they have the highest payrolls, or the Dodgers do now. Like the Dodgers should every year theoretically be at least the NLCS or the division series. Like there's no reason the Dodgers should ever miss the playoffs. Like Texas should be a powerhouse every year with the amount of money and resources that they have. So
yeah.
They're underachievers. Xavier Worthy, based on his skill set, is an underachiever. And I can tell when Jay doesn't like somebody, he'll purposely misspell their name just to say screw you. I'll call him X worthless. That's what he is. He's I'd rather have his teammate Adonai Mitchell. Honestly, if I was going to take one of the Texas, I'd rather have Adonai. So I think Xavier Worthy's he's junk. Brennan Presley. Oklahoma State's going to have an underrated team this year. Trust me, especially with that with Ollie Gordon, that stud running back they have. OK State, they are gonna be a sleeper team, especially with this expanded playoff. They're definitely going to be a playoff team. You can mark that down. OK State will be in the top 12.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, for sure.
So the guy, and then Drake Stoops. I don't know a lot about Drake Stoops. I know Bob Stoops, the former head coach at Oklahoma, but I don't know.
That's actually
a lot about Drake Stoops. Is that his kid?
Yeah, it's his kid. Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah. So Javon Baker, I get Jay's point where he's like, Javon wasn't that far off. I know fantasy wise, he was like 42 points difference from being the top fantasy receiver in the Big 12, but he wasn't that far off. So,
Yeah,
and
it's
if he had
I
caught more of those targets, Jay, if he had, instead of doing 52 of 83, if he had caught even 10 more balls, 62 of 83, he probably would have been in that 1,400 yard range, somewhere like 1,400 yards.
oh yeah, most definitely.
And then we would have been talking about him. He would have had more of a national profile. We would have been talking about him with some of the big boys.
Yeah.
With some of the heavy hitters, Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard of him. Keon Coleman, Roma Dunze. All the big hitters we've been talking about for months. And so he needs to clean up some of that. He needs to haul in. At least a higher percentage. Needs to haul in at least 10 to 12 more of those than he did. But so that's the difference. I don't think he's that. Yeah, Xavier Worthy. I'd rather have Javon Baker over Xavier Worthy. I'll be honest. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I was watching on the Texans. I was watching that Texas playoff game, and it's I really didn't I really didn't see
He didn't
really
pop.
any. No,
He didn't pop.
Anodyne. I didn't see anything from Anodyne Mitchell either. Only time that I seen was that one amazing catch he had in the end zone. I mean, other than that, they really didn't do a whole lot in that game. So to me, they didn't really impress me much because I'm like, these guys are top 10, supposed to be top 10 prospects, for and I'm just like, I didn't see anything that was really like eye popping. I'm like, for me to want to draft,
they paid their way. They paid their way. That's the only thing I can think of, Jay. They paid their way in. I understand, with Florida State, losing their quarterback, and just not wanting a third string guy starting a playoff game, and Florida State got waxed by Georgia anyways. So, like, I get that. Georgia should have been the fourth team. I mean, Texas didn't deserve that last playoff spot. I think their money is what got them into that. And that's for another time, another story. I know I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, Texas was the one team that they did not belong in there. Not one bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, they looked all right. I mean, there were some games that were all right, and then it's I mean, there's gonna be guys that are like, they're gonna probably hate on us. Why are you dissing freaking Texas for? I'm like, we're not dissing Texas. We're looking at it more as a fantasy outlook. Are we gonna draft, like in our dynasty leagues? Are we gonna draft Anodyne Mitchell? Are we gonna draft Xavier Worthy? I'm like, this is why we're doing these. I mean, like, just looking into, we did Xavier Worthy. If you want to go back and take a look at that in our our college profiles, go back and take a look. I mean, he's not a bad kid. We just have our, it's.
Yeah, we have to we profile these guys. We try to put the pros and cons out there. I mean, we said some nice stuff about Xavier Worthy too. Yeah, he was one of the guys. Yep. Definitely, he was definitely one of the spotlight players. I think maybe October, November we did him. So yeah, you can go back and watch that in the playlist there if you're offended by this. But yeah, we're projecting for dynasty, like, if you're gonna hold on, if you somehow he's on the free agent wire, you take him late and he pops, he's a Puka. It's a Tank Dell situation, a Puka situation where this guy nobody was expecting to be as good as he is, and you have shares of him, like it's the damn stock market, or right? a redraft league where week 7 you need a receiver, and somehow this guy's on the free agency wire in your 12-man league, and he's somehow he's getting targets. Wherever he ends up in Tennessee, he's going to get targets. Who the hell else do they have? He goes to the Titans, right? He probably will. And then you're like, so that's why we're kind of parlaying this information the way that we are. Is we're thinking ahead to the next. We're thinking ahead to the next level. Hence why we tend to be like an NFL fantasy show. And then we have the NFL, we have the draft logo on the bottom there. So this isn't coming from an NFL person's perspective on the college guys. And we would have a separate thing if it was just about the college level, but it's like, we're trying to help owners and ourselves. We're trying to see where this guy is going to project at the next level, and how do I get my hands on him? Okay. And why do I know about him and different fan bases? If I'm if you're a Titans fan, you've never heard of him, and you come across our show, then you're like, oh, okay, maybe these guys are onto something. We don't have anything at receiver. Maybe this guy could come in, preseason, be our number 3 guy.
Yeah, more than likely. Just a couple things. I mean, when I was kind of seeing, he's kind of got that, he's got that, when they're in the red zone, he's got that nice 50-50, jump ball, to him.
Yeah.
And if a play is broken, he'll come back to the quarterback to try to make a play or whatever. So I mean, there's things like that he does. We already talked about his he's a physical wide receiver for his height. I mean, I think he's got he's kind of got that top speed, but not really quite. So I mean, there's some DBs that could probably catch him. So I mean, you're not really quite that home run speed, but I mean, it's kind of there. But he does got that run, on that run catch ability, which is a nice, nice talent, a good ability to have for a guy like him. And I don't know, I'm just thinking maybe he could be, depending on where he lands, maybe a wide receiver 1, maybe a wide receiver 2. It all depends on where he lands, and we'll get more into that after the draft or wherever he got drafted. If he does get drafted or if he's a free agent, I'm sure we'll probably, talk about him in our summer editions when we talk about all the divisions during the summer. I'm trying to think. My other thing was too, is like he's kind of like if he's in a Hyatt situation with a crowded room, it'd be pretty hard for him to stand out from the rest. And it all depends on which wide receivers are there and whatnot for him to maybe stand out from the rest. But yeah, I think that's kind of all I kind of got on him. And kind of down in the corner, you can kind of see where he stands pretty much. Oh, I actually, nope. I think I messed that part up far as the national part. Nope, maybe that. Nope, I didn't. That's all correct. So you can kind of see there 17th out of, he was for 1,000 yards. He was in the nation, 17th best. And then he was 97th for 52 receptions there, and then 52 for 7 touchdowns too. So it gives you kind of an idea where he was nationally too. And then I think I had I don't think I had his stuff for the Big 12. I don't think I had that over there. So that might have been my bad too. I usually put where he's kind of at in the Big 12 too. So I always kind of separate kind of where some of these guys are and then to kind of where he stood nationally, so kind of break it up both that way, so everybody kind of gets an idea what he did in the conference and then compared to full conference,
Yeah, and he didn't have Michael Penix throwing him the ball. He didn't have he didn't even have Spencer Rattler, who we both like a lot after the Senior Bowl from South Carolina. He didn't even have Spencer Rattler throwing him the ball. There was no J.J. McCarthy's here. There was no Bo Nix is here. This was UCF's guy isn't very good. So let's keep that in consideration too. Like there's probably a lot of balls sailed over his head. And go back. He's got highlights on YouTube. Obviously, we dig a little bit further in than the 10-second YouTube short videos that have his highlights. We dig into that more, and that's why I think like I'll say it again. I said it before. Fall somewhere in that Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Tolbert range in terms of his NFL stat line. And if you put a gun to my head, first year, I'm gonna say he's got 400 and probably about 450 yards receiving. I think he makes a team, 450 yards receiving, and he tends to pop more later in the year. I would say, after week 10, you can expect to see some numbers from him, and that happens a lot. I mean, Bo Melton from the Packers. Did anybody see him pop in the last couple weeks of the year? That came out of nowhere, and he was a late round pick. And took him like a season and almost 2 full seasons to finally start getting targets. And so sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and he'll probably be in the rotation with Green Bay going forward. So
more likely
it could be. So I mean, there's a couple of variations, but just guessing 450, he might be, if you're in a desperate deeper league, if it's redraft, you're in a 16-man league, week 12, 13, you need a receiver. You'll probably be picking this guy up, or in a dynasty league, you're going to be glad that you have him. And then 2025 and beyond, you're like, okay, I'm going to hold my share of him. I'm not going to trade him. I'm not going to, he'll probably just be sitting on your dynasty bench all year, or maybe on your taxi squad, and then you promote him. Somewhere in that range is where he'll be at.
Yeah, more than likely. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up our discussion on Javon Baker. And if you guys have any thoughts or comments, leave them down there. I'll try to, if there is any, I'll try to reply to. If there is any comments, I'll reply to it or whatever. Or I mean, just leave your thoughts down there. If you think we're wrong, or hey, just leave your comments down there. I mean, hey, more the merrier on on any other buddy's perspective. But yeah, I think after this one, we will be hitting up Ricky Pearsall from Florida. So that will be coming out this week too as well. So stay tuned for that. Which is why you need to subscribe to our channel. Make sure you hit that bell for notifications. Jump in our Discord, and who knows, I might even live stream it with whoever might be tuning in on Friday or Thursday. So we'll might see you guys then. So just make sure you guys join all of our social media sites. So Apple, Spotify, Google Play. Get over there, subscribe, hit the bell on those. This will be up in audio version too as well here soon too as well. Probably tonight or tomorrow, whenever I get to it as quick as I can. But yeah, other than that, I think that kind of wraps up our night. Anything else quick, Eli, before we jump out of here?
Yep. And if you guys had never heard upcoming Ricky Pearsall, if you haven't heard of Ricky, he's so fine. Ricky's the guy that had that one-handed catch. So you remember, anybody saw highlights on SportsCenter or on YouTube this year, you would have seen that one-handed catch that he made. So Florida Gator Ricky Pearsall is coming up next. Maybe I'll catch a one-handed beer can, just like Ricky did or something. Let me go look for one in the fridge. I'll see you guys later.
All right, guys. I'm Jamie. That's Eli, and we're Out of Rhythm. We'll catch you guys next time. Later.